right now we're going to hear from my friends who became my family, Grace and Joel Steenbergen. Come on, put your hands together. And my beautiful niece, Alba. Oh, so gorgeous. Now, if you know anything about Grace and Joel, you know that they are lovely people. They are young adult connect group leaders in our church. Joel is our worship and creative pastor. Grace was our kids pastor many moons ago. And they're just beautiful people. If you don't know them, go up and say hi to them. They're amazing. Now, they're on midweek today because... Oh, wow. Well, actually, they're on midweek today because of Alba. Their story of healing has a lot to do with my beautiful niece. Yeah, it has. It's all about you, Alba. Now, Grace and Joel, how do you want to tell your story? You want to? Where are we going to start?
So in 2017, we decided that we would like to try for a family. We had been married 6 months, a year. Yeah. Yep. And decided we wanted to try for a family. And the previous year I had been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so we knew that it might be difficult to have a baby, but also it may not affect it at all. And so it was, just however it went. And so... so we decided to try for a family, and that led to 2.5, 3 years of trying for a baby and infertility and specialist appointments and injections and medications that made me go a bit crazy.
Your words, not mine.
And just a whole array of diagnoses and surgery. So it was a big thing. So it's actually interesting because in Consecration Sunday in 2017, which is a Sunday we have where we dedicate the year to the Lord, a man in our church actually asked us if we wanted to become parents, and he had no idea that we were hoping to try for a family that year. And so he asked if he could pray for us, and he actually prayed for us and spoke over us and spoke over the kind of mum and dad and parents we would be. And we had no idea what the next few years would turn out like. And so that was just highlighted to me right from the beginning that Jesus was at work and God was over it and had his finger on it, and that Jesus was healing and a part of the story right from the very start before any of us even knew what was to come, which is just amazing. And that's a word that I held on to the whole time that brought me peace and comfort in those times of doubt and fear and upset and hurt and pain. That was something that I was able to hold on to. So it's just amazing how even without the miracle at the end, God was healing and Jesus was healing right from the very outset, which is amazing. Sorry. I got my notes because, hey. After a year, there was still no baby, so we were referred to a specialist, a fertility specialist, and that led to going on medication to see if that would help. And so we did 4 months or 4 rounds of medication and lots of blood tests, lots of hormone tracking, a whole rigmarole of tests and things like that. But again, still no baby. And so I ended up having surgery for suspected endometriosis, and they did find endo, and it was stage 1, luckily. And so after recovering from surgery, we went into another few rounds of medication, hopefully with the surgery having improved our chances. And the first couple of rounds I didn't respond to the medication at all this time, and so obviously that's really disheartening because we thought the surgery would be the answer, and it wasn't.
That was the main thing stopping it all. And
so we were down to our final round of medication or cycle, so to speak, and this was the final cycle before further medical intervention would be the only option, and we had both prayed about it and we had both individually got a clear answer from God that was not the plan that he had for us and for our journey. And he said it was a clear no, so we knew that after this cycle that was it. We were on our own. No more medical help.
Wow.
And so we And so our specialist put us on a different medication, which was administered via injection. And she said, look, we'll try a different medication, but she was basically not very hopeful that anything would work because nothing had worked so far. So she's like, look, we'll try one last time, but we'll probably have to move on to further intervention. And so we did that final round, and which takes us to youth camp in 2020. And Joel and I were both there serving. As we had done in the past, and we were there just to help out with the kids and whatever. And in the first service, in the first worship song, and we weren't expecting anything for us because we were there to help the kids and to see them and encounter God. As you guys would know.
Yeah.
And so the first worship song was Canvas and Clay, and it was just we sing it sometimes, but the first verse goes, in my mother's womb you formed me with your hands, known and loved by you before the world began. When I doubt it, Lord, remind me I'm wonderfully made. You're an artist and a potter, I'm the canvas and the clay. And throughout that song, God was just talking to me so clearly about how he was the creator, and even though I felt like my body had failed and there was all these things wrong with me, he made everything perfect, and I was his canvas and he was the artist, and he could create nothing out of the impossible. I mean, anything out of the impossible. And so that was crazy. And then during that song, I got a vision of our daughter as a 16-year-old being a youth leader one day, and which just astounded me because usually I don't see visually. God doesn't speak to me visually, but he clearly did that night, which is why throughout my pregnancy I was so certain she was a girl.
Wow.
And then that night I went to bed and I had a dream of a positive pregnancy test, and I knew that it was mine. And I had that dream before, but not about me. And so and I woke up and I was like, I think I'm pregnant. And I was just pregnant, but I didn't know it then at the time, which is just crazy. And so then fast forward to the 30th of November, 2020, not this year, last year, 2020. And we had little Alba, and her name is, yes, you. And her name is Alba Hope, and Alba means white, pure, bright. And so we just hope that her life and her story can just be such a bright, shining light of the Jesus who saves and the Jesus who heals.
Come on.
Which is amazing because he does. It's unbelievable.
So what did that whole experience teach you guys about Jesus as our great physician?
I guess from a husband's point of view, it's, this whole journey, and it's hard to watch as a husband because as a guy, you just want to fix things. You see someone in pain, you want to fix it. But it's all out of your control. So you feel quite helpless. But what I've kind of learned about this is, from my point of view, from what we've gone through, is you've got to hand it over to God. First, you've got to hand it over to God. You can't try and physically make things happen. Only God can do it in his timing. His timing is perfect. So you have to hand over the reins and go, you know what, God, no matter what happens, you're in control and it's a good plan.
Yeah.
Secondly is you got to position yourself for the miracle. So you don't just, stop talking to your friends. You don't stop going to church. You don't stop praying because you don't get what you want. You're pushing those things deeper. Your friendships are so much more important. Your going to church, your relationships, your prayer life, your worship life, reading the Bible is so much, because that's where you remember, that's where you see the promises and you see God's hand. And it sets you up in the right position for when it happens, whenever that timing is.
Yeah. And I think for me, like I already said, right from the start, you could see Jesus was in it. And it's that Jesus is healing even before you've seen the outcome. And he's working even before then. But the other thing is that Jesus cares about your emotional healing, about how you're feeling. He cares about what's going on in your heart and your brokenheartedness. And it's just crazy. I just wanted to share this quickly because I think Pastor Mel from C3 shared at Revival Week actually about how God changed Sarah's laugh from when she couldn't conceive. She did in Genesis 18, a really bitter, sarcastic, I don't believe it, hurt kind of laugh when she heard God say that this time next year Sarah will have a son. And she laughed this almost, this ironic, bitter laugh in that scripture. And I actually wrote this on January 6, 2020, and it says, January 6, 2020, sorry. And it says, in the early hours of Monday morning, which was that day, I still couldn't sleep, so I got up and read this day's devotional. And you see, after another failed cycle and some hard things to comprehend, I had spent days in grief and confusion, lots of tears, inability to sleep at night, not eating, and worst of all, so many negative thoughts and emotions. My faith talk was non-existent. Joel had tried to talk to me before bed with positivity and faith, and he had tried so hard to convince me that this isn't it for us, and God's got a plan and it will happen in his time. And with tears streaming down my face, I had laughed at him sadistically, sarcastically, bitterly and painfully, in disbelief and with no hope. And I shared this same laugh with Sarah. And so what a shock to read this story today. Same circumstances, same laughter, but now I have the hope that God could change my laughter too someday. And so then you fast forward to exactly a year from that date, same as Sarah, this time next year, and my devotion, it was the same passage, but this time I wrote, I am in awe and reminded to surrender everything to him, the one who's powerful, in control, keeps his promises, does the impossible, saves, shows mercy, and does things in his perfect timing. I thank him for doing these things in my life and showing his sovereignty in our journey to Alba, and I thank him for my little Alba hope. So that's crazy that was a year, and he changed my laughter just as he did Sarah's, from this bitter, angry, upset, hurt laughter to this one of pure joy and elation at his miracle working power. And so just, learn that Jesus cares about your laughter, and he cares about your joy, and he cares about your emotions and how you're healing. Physically, I still have polycystic ovaries, I have endometriosis, I have Crohn's, but I am healed and I have Alba, which is just amazing. So, yeah.